Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the League Racing TV YouTube channel for round one of the Esports Masters League, League One. It's the first round of the season. We're back once again for the Esports Masters League. It's great to be back again for this championship. What a championship it was last season. And joined alongside me today is a new person to the League Racing TV channel. I've commentated alongside him before, and a lot of people that are watching now may know him pretty well from some other leagues. It is QVR Daka. How you doing, mate?
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, I'm very excited to be first covering, of course, on the League Racing TV channel, and this time, of course, for the Esports Masters League. Now, I'm really looking forward to this one. It has gone through 9 seasons, of course, as the mini league, but of course, for this season on the new F1 game, it has been reformatted, and now we're going to see how that format stacks up. Really looking forward to seeing how everyone goes forth then for League 1 of the Esports Master League. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. Like Daka says, it is a completely rebranded season. So obviously we were running the mini league. We have now changed to the Masters League. This is League 1. League 1 is running at 7 o'clock once a month for the rest of the season. And then shortly after this race at 8:30 will be the Premier League. There are a little bit of differences in the rules between the two. So just going into the race, we're just going to quickly take you through what the rules and regulations are for this season. They have changed ever so slightly. So for the Masters League, for League 1, the one that was racing right now, the settings are very similar to a regular race. So unlike the 25% and one shot that we've had in the past, we now have a short qualifying session with a 50% race. Safety car part firm is on, formation lap is on, damage is on full, strict corner cutting and dynamic weather, much like you see in a regular TTML division race. Assists wise, however, the Premier League is running absolutely no assists at all. League 1, which is the one that we're commentating over now, they are allowing assists, so there will be assists like ABS is allowed, medium traction is allowed, and that is the case for this tier. Moving on to the points system for this time round, we're running a little bit different to the division races, but still, 1st to 20th will get points in this championship. So the winner of the race will get 25 points, 2nd is 22, 3rd is 20 points, 4th is 18, 5th is 16, and then from 6th all the way down to 20th, it decreases in a point per place you finish. So you can get 1 point for last or 15 points for 6th place in the championship. So much like the previous mini league seasons, it's very, very vital that all teams try and finish the race to try and score as many points. We have got a much longer calendar this time round. We are running a longer calendar than we usually do. We usually ran a 6-race calendar. It's much longer this season. We're obviously starting off at Australia this week. And another thing you'll notice as well is there's more teams this time round. So we usually ran 4 teams of 5, I believe, or 5 teams of 4 in previous mini league seasons. We are now running 10 teams with 2 drivers and 1 reserve available. So we'll take you through those shortly, but just looking at the change in rules that we've had, obviously, Daka, you've raced in previous mini league seasons. How do you think that this new dynamic is going to affect the way that this season goes?
It's going to be really interesting because I think that it's going to be a lot easier for these teams because now we've got 10 teams of 2. So each team only with 2 drivers. It means that communication is probably going to be a bit easier to manage and they won't be tripping over each other just as much as they otherwise would have been. I'm very excited to see how it all changes up. Of course, we've got so many teams now, going to be very close, very tight and very well contested out on track. So I'm very much looking forward to that one. So of course we'll see how this new format manages to shake things up. For the first round, of course, it's we're only going to be racing monthly, so it's going to be quite spaced out, and we're going to be seeing a lot of races, of course, into the next calendar year. So it's going to be fun to watch all the way throughout this game cycle. But yeah, I'm very excited to see how this all goes forth, as I'm sure that very soon we'll be getting into the racing, and we're going to see how these teams all shake up against each other for the first round here at Australia.
Absolutely. I think we're just waiting for one more driver to join the lobby. But obviously, speaking of drivers, we have got 10 teams this time around. We will just quickly go through the driver lineup for each team this season. So we've got Clean Vigor Racing. Their main team is in this division. We've got QVR Kuhn Bly. He's racing alongside T100 Zach. I think they're both racing today. They have a reserve in Dropia. There's a reserve for the season. OSRL team is racing with Joe and Deadly Flow, and their reserve is Stevian, I believe. Virtual Esports Racing is running with VER Nicholas and Riley. OWR Esports is running with Martin Bell and Atlas. And their reserve driver is Bakis for the season. Clean Vigor Academy is also racing in this division as well. So two clean vigor teams to look out for today. We've got QVR Maledictus and QVR Sneaky Racing, and then their reserve driver for the season is QVR Nico. XL Racing are racing this time round. Division 3 winners last time out for mini league, so look out for them to maybe increase on increase on the pace that they found last season. That was obviously their first season last time out. XL Gary and XL Hardy are their main drivers, and IRO Dylan is their reserve. We also have Leonis Academy, formerly known as Livid Racing. They are running McCrew and Lyronics for the season. Non-label racing team are racing with Symbolics and Hardly. They are racing for them. And then we've got the two TTG teams. So the main TTG team is Laser and Wesker, and Cowboy is their reserve. And then the Academy team is Maximus and Kiki, and their reserve is Maze. So looking at that list, a long list of drivers for the season, there's obviously quite a few people we know on there, but also a lot of people that we've not really come across before. So it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top. And is there anyone that really catches your eye?
Well, I think it's really that those veteran teams, the likes of QVR, no bias, and TTG, who have obviously been at it since the start, they've been, very well established. Of course, QVR, I think, won the top division last time out, and I think that TTG, I think it was the Academy team that actually managed to win the second tier, if I'm not mistaken on that one. I could be wrong, but yeah. So those are the kind of guys that you'd expect to be very competitive and fight for the top spots, but it really could be anyone. As you mentioned, there's a lot of drivers, a lot of teams that we're not maybe as familiar with. We're very excited to see how they shape up against these very established teams already. I can't wait to get it started.
Absolutely, yeah. First round of the season as well. Like always in real life and in a lot of divisions, it is the Australian Grand Prix at Albert Park in Melbourne. A lot of people are, I would say, divided on this track. This is a track that divides people into two categories, really, isn't it? Of people that absolutely love this track and people that maybe don't get on with it so well. It's really become a staple since the mid-90s for real life Formula 1, and obviously it's now a staple in league racing as well, as the opener for a lot of seasons. Going into this one, firstly, how do you feel about the track is something I also want to ask, and how do you think that this track is going to play out in terms of strategy and racing on this circuit?
It's a track that I really enjoy to drive over a single lap. It's very little room for error, and it's very, very punishing for mistakes, and you're going to be seeing a lot of drivers having to push right to the limit, especially in their final laps in qualifying, and yeah, we'll see who's able to keep that one clean. But I think that overall it's a very difficult track to overtake at because it's so narrow all the way through, so there's not much space, but if you can, it is definitely possible to find it, and we'll see what drivers are able to do that. As we are now beginning to get prepared, we are missing a driver unfortunately ahead of this race, but we'll go ahead with the 19 we have as we're getting ready now, just a few seconds out, and we can get the first round of the Esports Masters League underway.
Absolutely, heading into short qualifying, 18 minutes of qualifying this time round. A lot more chance of people to get their prime laps in. We had obviously one-shot qualifying last season, so the people that struggled in one-shot qualifying, they were at the back of the field having to work their way forward. So this time round, more of the people that maybe had the raw pace will be able to get to the front of the field. Albert Park, 16 corners, 3 DRS zones. There are a lot of DRS zones and opportunities to overtake. It's whether you are close enough to make the opportunity work. That is the case with this track. Strategy-wise as well, the undercut at this track, as we've seen from previous races that we've commentated over or raced in, the undercut at this track is incredibly powerful. So maybe starting at the front of the field and getting to the front and then pitting early is maybe the best strategy here.
Yes, but it's easier said than done getting to the front, particularly in such a competitive field. So it's going to be certainly quite a prospect to look out for, as we're just waiting for the last of the drivers, Martin Bell of OWR, to get the tyres selected, and now we are just about ready to go. So of course, 18-minute qualifying session, maybe lower pressure than the one shot, one chance format that we had last season, so really looking forward to this one then. Here we go, 18 minutes of quality ahead of us. We'll see who grabs that all-important pole position for the opener.
Absolutely, and we have got a dry qualifying by the looks of things. Remember that the weather is dynamic for the season, so we can get rain throughout the season at any point. So it is dry for the first qualifying. We don't know what the conditions are for the wet, and to be honest, I like it when I don't know. I like to get surprised when we go into the race and see what weather we get, because it does throw a little bit of strategy and a new complex really into the race. Another thing to look out for here as well is obviously we are running the multiplayer cars. So the multiplayer cars run a little bit differently to how equal Formula 1 cars work in this game. They are a little bit more understeery. They are built obviously by the Codemasters team in conjunction with the Formula 1 management to basically make a stock Formula One car is what they are, and they run maybe a little bit more understeery than real Formula One cars or the equal Formula One cars in this game. So that adds a new dynamic, is that the people that maybe struggle in the regular equal cars that we have for most league races this season might actually come out with a bit of an advantage here.
It is so difficult to call and so hard to anticipate, and I think that's one of the very intriguing factors that we have ahead of this opening round. We'll see, of course, the drivers and teams that really are able to make a mark in the opener, because, of course, it's a long season over many months. So we'll see, of course, if things change throughout. But, of course, this first race, all important, and we'll see what teams and what drivers are able to get up at the front and try and establish themselves as leading fixtures out there in this championship there early on, starting now.
Absolutely, yeah. T100 Zach is one of the first guys out on the track in the QVR team. The leader driver on the track at the moment, I believe, is one of the VER drivers. If I'm not mistaken, it's Niklas. So Niklas will be the first person to start a lap. They're running a relatively simple white and black livery with a red stripe on the side of it. Nice and easy and clean. QVR are running a very striking, I would say, black and green livery. It's kind of a chrome livery, really, they're running. But here comes Niklas. We are on board with him. He'll run us through the first qualifying lap of the session. So let's see how he does around this track. Into turn 1, brakes about 75 meters before the corner, so very late on the brakes into turn 1. Nice and neat through the corner, coming down the second DRS straight on the track after the pit straight, coming down into turn 3, a very heavy braking zone, probably the best overtaking tube opportunity on the track, down into second gear to get the car turned, short shifts up to third and to fourth to null the wheel spin on the exit of the corner, slightly sideways after touching the curb on the inside of turn 4, but gets away with it. Coming to the end of the first sector now, want to be looking to the lower end of the 26s, and it's a 26.3, so it's a good start to the quali session for Niklas as he comes through the second sector now. He's coming up to turn 9 and 10. Very easy to get this corner wrong and invalidate on the inside and the outside of turn 9. Goes in, hits the curb nicely, doesn't run too wide through turn 10. Nice and neat so far. Niklas's lap has been very clean as he comes up to the end of the second sector now before the very fast turn 11 and 12 chicane. This catches a lot of people out, especially with the new handling model on this game. It's very tricky to get it right. Looks nice and neat, but maybe not the fastest line through the corner. He was a little bit cautious on power through 12. Now coming down into turn 13 at the end of the third DRS straight on the track. Into the final sector, the most technical part of the lap now, coming up towards the final 2 corners. Nice and neat, takes a little bit too much curb on the inside there of turn 14. Now into turn 15, slowest corner on the track, and then into the final corner. A lot of understeer produced here. It's such a long corner. Now onto the pit straight and the long run down into down to the finish line, and it's a 1 minute 19.9 for Niklas. A relatively decent banker lap, and he had a good start to the lap, but as the lap went on, he kind of lost a little bit of pace, and we're kind of expecting qualifying to maybe in the low 19s, maybe the high 18s in this session.
Yes, indeed, but we've got a lot of time for people to improve. Speaking of improving, XL Gary on a 19.7 goes to the top, and that's immediately topped by QVR Kumblai. That's a 19.533, goes fastest by just under 0.2 of a second, and we've got, I think that was hardly a little bit off the pace there. We're looking for a bit more than that. McCrew as well, not a competitive time, but it is Kumblai. Gary joining him on the provisional front row with only 5 times down though. A lot of room for improvement for everyone, and I expect, as you mentioned, drivers are going to be getting right towards those 18s later on in the session, but for the moment it is Kuhn on pole position, Gary up there in second place. They're off to a good start here in quali.
Absolutely, yeah. Wesker meanwhile moves up to 4th in the TTG team. Deadly Flow meanwhile goes 4th, and then Lyronix goes up to 3rd place, so Deadly Flow down to 5th. Lyronix in the LR team, he's up to 3rd on a 19.7. Good banker lap for him, up at the front of the field, but just behind Gary. Kumblai with a 2/10 gap at the top of the field at the moment, and I think it looks like the first runs really are done, and at the moment only 8 people have been able to set a valid lap time, and that just goes to show that this track, it's incredibly difficult to get a clean lap done around here. It's so easy to invalidate, and it's already shown with only 7 people really setting competitive times. Even McCrew's first time in the session wasn't competitive, so goes to show how difficult this track is to master.
Yes, indeed. It's so technical, and I think it's quite underrated in the difficulty level that it has amongst the community. It is very hard to nail a lap. Martin Bell is the next car. He is going to come over the line and goes 5th on a 28.1. Not a bad lap at all.
Spinner,
we've got Spinner. Who's that?
I think that is McCrew. Yeah, McCrew coming to the end of his second lap on the same set of soft tyres as Spun coming out the final corner. So he was improving on his time, and he hadn't invalidated as of yet, but has ruined it at the final corner once again. LNR Symbolics goes on a 34.1 on the second lap on his medium tyre, so he's obviously made a mistake somewhere around his lap on those mediums. Expect him to be up with his teammate after the next run, maybe. Looking further down the field, Maximus is coming up to finish a time. He's in the Academy team. He's in the blue car, so let's wait and see what he can do. That's one thing to look out for, the Academy team for TTG TTG is the blue, the red is the main team. Maximus coming up to the line. What is his time? It's only a 21.9. He goes P9. Maybe a mistake from him on that lap as well. Not as competitive as he would like. Only 9th on the grid and behind Hardly Beam, who's on the medium tyres and has done a 21.5. So expect him to go maybe at least a second faster than that time on a set of soft tyres. But after the first round of qualifying laps, we've had Dylan and Maledictus and Sneaker, I believe, all invalidate their first runs in the session. And it's green light at the top of the field. But again, QVR and Excel, we saw this really in Mini League last season, that they would really qualify well in a lot of races. And it seems to have carried over this season.
Yes, indeed, and of course, a track like this, it is going to be, well, this 18-minute qualifying session is so crucial. These drivers really need to perform under the pressure, but that is what they're trying to do, of course, and they're going to have to see how they perform under these circumstances. We'll see if they have what it takes. At the moment, it's pretty quiet out there on track. I think one of the only drivers on a lap, well, Zach has just started a lap, as has Maledictus in the Academy team for QVR, but it is quite quiet out there, and we're going to see more drivers going in. But I'm going to take you through to 1000 Zach. He gets a little bit out of shape there, a little bit of oversteer towards 4, but recovers well, of course, at the bottom of the board. He's going to look to try and improve. He's going to kick that off then. A 26.2 first sector is pretty solid, very tight on the line, going through turn 7. Now he's going to try and keep it together. Hook it through 8, and now the braking zone at 9. As you mentioned, Aidan, so difficult to nail it and keep it clean as well, but he's able to just about stay within the limits of the track. Uses a lot of curve on the outside, but now throws it down, catapults it towards the brilliant turn 11 and turn 12 chicane. Have to be absolutely on the limit here. No margins that need to be left if you want to maximise this. He's apparently purple through that second sector. We'll see how he's able to improve there. Going into the last sector now, onto the brakes at a turn 13. Running out on exit. Now absolutely just maximum apex speed. Going through turn 14 on the brakes again at a 15. Take that curve on the inside. Running out on the left. Back to the right for the apex and back on the left for the exit. Little bit of a wobble coming out of the last corner, but he's going to throw himself towards the line, and he goes on pole position. A 19.4 and backed up by his teammate Kumbly as well. That's very impressive for those QVR guys. They're 1 and 2 for the moment there, and now it's up for the rest of the guys to try and get up to that level.
Absolutely brilliant lap in the end from Zach. He goes for 19.4, top of the field, a 10th clear of Kuhn, who's on a lap at the moment, and he's already nearly a 10th up on his personal best in the first sector. So look to him to try and improve. Maledictus in the Academy team, meanwhile, has moved up to P5 with his first lap in the session. So that's a lot of QVR guys in the top 6. Laser goes into 3rd now for the main TTG team. He goes 3rd on a 19.5. Just behind Kuhnblay. Let's see if he can improve on that time. Looking further down the field, Niklas is invalidated already, coming through turns 1 and 2, it looks like. Looking at the people who haven't set a time as of yet, Kiki's coming up to the line. He's going to be setting a 1 minute 20.8. It's only 11th so far. He'll be looking to try and improve on that. The OSRL team of Jomo has just started a lap. Dylan's on a lap at the moment. Dylan, we know, has got relatively decent speed around here, but he's already invalidated a run in this session. Let's see if he can improve on that. He's running in the XL team, by the way. Having a look further down, Sneaky's on an out lap. OWR Atlas is on a lap now as well in that black livery with the pink stripe. A very striking livery as he comes round the final corner. Let's see what he can do with that time, to see if he can jump to the front of the field, see if he can get near his teammate Martin Bell, who's currently 8th. Atlas goes 12th, so it's not too bad of a lap, but again, still a 21 flat, not quite where he probably wants to be in this session. We'll go back down to Dylan and see if he's improving on his times. Coming to the last corner, he's about 3/10 down on what Zach was doing at this point in the lap. Let's see what he can do by the time he crosses the line. Is it a 19? Is it a 1 minute 20? It's a 19.7, so he goes P5 just behind his XL teammate Gary. XL currently running 4th and 5th, but it's QVR 1-2 at the moment. QVR dream start to qualifying. Kuhn has improved on his lap. It's a 19.4. He goes just behind his teammate. He didn't quite manage to beat him over the full lap, but it was a good improvement for him. But it's a QVR 1-2. TTG are running 3rd for Laser, and then it's an XL 4-5. So at the moment, QVR have got the stranglehold in qualifying. Is, I believe that was, I don't know who just crossed the line. I didn't quite see who that was. That might have been Joe Moore. It was Joe Moore, actually, yeah.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, just went 11th. He's just behind his OSRL teammates, so they're very evenly matched. Less than a 10th between them, but Deadly Flow coming to the line. Does he improve? He does. He does a 19.9, so he jumps into the top 10 ahead of Martin Bell, a 19.9.
Oh, Gary!
Wow, Gary cuts to the front of the field then. A 19.3. Good lap from him. He's a little bit out of sync with everyone else, but he jumps to the front of the field now with a 19.3 for XL. He's to the front. Lyronix has gone 4th for LR as well, so he's improved on his time nicely. Jumps back into the top 5 after being kicked out by the likes of Zach and Dylan earlier in the session. But yeah, like I was saying, it's QVR really at the front of the field. It's Sneaky now goes 7th in the other QVR car, so he jumps to the front of the field alongside his QVR teammate Maledictus. So it's going swimmingly well. 4 QVR guys in the top 8 at the moment. This is a dream start for them.
And also a brilliant start from XL as well. First and sixth there. I'm sure they'll be very satisfied with that. Of course, League 3 team last season up into this division now, and they are proving their worth so far against these veteran teams. So impressive. So far, it's got Nicholas out. Nicholas, I'm not sure where that's gone. At the last corner, what's going on?
Looks like he might have spun at the last corner. I didn't quite catch that one, unfortunately, but it looks like he's spun coming through the last corner, has hit the wall somehow. I was just on board with Martin Bell. Martin Bell's about 2/10 up on his time. Just the one thing to note, it's incredibly close in the top 10. Obviously, Nicholas has just retired from the session, but the top 9 are covered by only half a second. Actually, make that the top 10 now, because I think McCrew was that that was Wesker, sorry.
Wesker, yeah.
Wesker, a 19.7. He's jumped up behind his TTG teammate. They're now 5th and 6th, so they're doing very well in qualifying as well. That's the top 10 covered by half a second. And Martin Bell's improving on his time, so make that maybe the top 11. He goes 13th. Oh, he stays 13th actually in the end. He improves by a 10.5, but he stays in 13th. But still, it's so close at the moment between the top 10. Only half a second around a track that's technically really a specialist track.
Indeed it is, and it is good to see there. A good prospect for the future of this league, and I hope that things continue. It has that going through the remainder of the championship would be very, very exciting to behold. But yeah, it's really up now, because I think essentially a lap time in the 19s is necessary to be competitive here. And those guys that haven't quite managed it just yet really need to try and push. Really need to try and get an improvement out, otherwise they're going to be struggling. As someone moved up, and who was that?
Hardly Beam. He was running last after his medium runs. He was at the back of the field in the 22s. He improved by nearly 3 seconds on his time and went 6th with a 19.7. And he made a little bit of a mistake in the last corner as well. He picked up a lot of understeer and had to back out to not hit the wall. So there's even more lap time in that car. That's a great lap from him, and he's up into 6th place, splits the 2 TTG cars. That just goes to show that the medium tyres aren't really a good qualifying tyre, so there's so much pace difference between the two, at least in qualifying. We're just waiting to see Maximus crossing the line. He's just coming up to the line now, I think he might have made a mistake on his lap, unfortunately, which is why he's not improved at the moment. Oh no, he is on a lap, sorry, it was Kiki that crossed the line and has just started a run but has invalidated. Here comes Maximus to the line. Can he improve? He did a lap on the mediums, he's down at the back on his own. It's only a 21.4 for Maximus, so Maximus can't quite find the same pace advantage that Hartley was able to find.
Yeah, Zach with a huge monumental improvement, a 19.0 with 4.5 minutes to go. That is some marker, over 2/10 clear of XL Gary, and further just increasing QVR stranglehold on the top positions here in qualifying. That is so impressive from T1000 Zach there, and Gary and the likes are going to have to try and respond to that there. 19.0, that is quite a marker for them to chase down.
That is absolutely a brilliant lap from Zach. Goes to the front of the field at 19 flat, but there's only 4 minutes in qualifying left, so he's going to have to really rush to get back to the pits if he wants to get another run in. Kuhn's just started a lap, well, he's midway through a lap, he's a 10th and a bit up on his personal best in the middle sector, so if he can jump back onto the front row, then make it a front row lockout for QVR, that would be a dream start for them. They're both running, by the way, they're running different liveries, but they are both running in the main QVR team, these two. Here comes Kuhn round the final 2 corners. Can he improve on his time? No, he dives into the pit lane. So maybe a little mistake in the final sector somewhere, and he knows he's not going to improve on his time and wants to come in and put a fresh set of tyres on and go for another lap. That's smart from Kuhn to recognise that maybe he's not going to improve by enough to change positions on the grid and go for another set and go again.
Yes, indeed, and we'll see if he's able to put it together when it counts. But of course, he's got to try and, his goal was to really try and back up Zach, making an all QVR front row. We'll see, of course, Gary and the likes could get in the way of that. I suspect those Livid drivers, the Leonis drivers, I get a bit mixed up with their names still. But yeah, those guys I suspect will be trying to push for it as well as the TTG. So a lot of competitive drivers and teams out there looking to try and spoil the QVR party. But at the moment, it is going swimmingly for them. 1 and 3 for the main team. We'll see if they can keep that going in the last 3 minutes here in qualifying.
Absolutely, 3 minutes to go, and still we've only got 4 cars on the track. Everyone is leaving it to the absolutely last moment to go back out onto the track. They're leaving it until the track conditions are at their best, but that does mean people will get stuck in traffic. This track is relatively short and obviously very narrow, so it's very easy to get caught out by traffic. Joe Moore, meanwhile, for the OSRL team, currently in 15th. He's the only one on a lap at the moment. He's coming to the end of the lap. He is slightly up on his time. This won't, I don't think, get him into the top 10 unless he absolutely nails the final sector. Nice and neat through the final corner. A little bit slow on entry, but gets a much better exit. He's coming up to the line. He's beat all the traffic out, and it is a 19.8 from Joe Moore. Goes P12, though. A 19.8 could either put top 10 in 12th or inside the top 10 in 9th place. Those 9th down to 12th, less than a 10th covers them, and that's 4 cars. Just goes to show that even a tiny mistake, I mean, Joe may have made a tiny mistake at some point in that lap, and it's cost him nearly 4 places.
Yes, indeed. That is just what the level. That's the level of competition, ladies and gentlemen, that we are up against. What's happening? Is there contact or something?
Nah, Sneaky just started his lap, but look at the traffic in front of him. He got held up by his QVR teammate Maledictus. Maledictus got in his way down into turn 3, and now Martin Bell is in Sneaky's way. Sneaky's invalidated his time, so he's not going to be improving on 10th place, so it's not gone as well for the Academy team at the moment. The amount of traffic that is out together, everyone left it right to the last moment, and that now means that everyone is on the track together. The only one at the moment that is in any sort of clean air is Hardly Beam in 6th place, and we know that he can improve on his time, so he's in an amazing position to maybe jump right to the front of the field. We'll go on board with him, we'll ride through a lap, see whether he can improve. Let's see as he comes up to the line to start his final run in qualifying. Everyone is just moving out of everyone's way in the final sector. All of the cars, apart from 2, are in the final sector at the moment, and the final sector is only about 20 seconds long, so it's very, very tight in the final sector. Here comes Harley Beam through turn 1 and 2, very committed over the inside curve of turn 1, now down the second DRS straight into turn 3. Oh, has Gary improved? He does improve, but doesn't beat Zach's time. He stays in 2nd place for the time being. We've had 2 retirements. Joe's retired in the pit lane, and Maximus is also retired. Oh, and Hardy Beam slightly taps the grass going into turn 5 just before the corner, and has a massive snap of oversteer. That is such a shame. So committed in the first 4 corners of the lap, and he's ended up hitting the wall. That's such a shame. He's not going to be improving on 6th place, and he has retired. Let's hope that that doesn't catch anyone out behind him. Lays is the next person, I believe, on the track to try and set a lap time. We'll ride with him. No, everyone's just started their final runs. There's no one really. Lyronics is the only one not to start. He's just crossed the line now, so everyone is now on a lap. We'll ride with Laser. There is one car in front of him on the track. I'm not quite sure who it is in front of him, but here comes Laser through the 2nd sector. He's a 10th up on his personal best. Oh, a little bit of, he had to lift through turn 12. He was just a little bit offline, and he didn't have the confidence to keep it flat through the corner, so that's going to cost him quite a bit of time in the final sector. I'll be amazed if he's able to improve on his final sector time. With that 1/10 improvement he had in the first 2 sectors, he could get ahead of Lyronics, but too fast. Yeah, too much speed through turn 14, and he's ended up in the gravel on the outside of the corner. We've got one car coming up to the line. Not quite sure who that is. We'll wait and see if anyone jumps up through the field. I don't think it was Symbolics actually in the other LNR car, so he's jumped into the top 10 alongside his teammate. So he's improved nicely up into 8th place, but he won't be going any higher. We've got Kiki coming to the line, I believe, for the Academy team. He doesn't improve on 17th, so he's down at the back of the field. Dylan coming up to the line. Dylan doesn't improve on 9th, so a lot of people struggling to improve their times. Kuhn's improved, though. He's gone into 2nd place, so it is a QVR 1-2 at the moment. Front row lockout, and there's no one really in the field that can challenge that. Is Zach improving on his time? He's only 17 thousandths of a second up on his personal best. We've got Maledictus up into P5 in the other QVR team. He's into the top 5 alongside his teammates. Here comes Zach to the line. Does he improve? He does. Another 19 flat. A great final sector from him. He goes 3rd, so he jumps ahead of Gary now. A 19-2. He jumps to the front into the 2nd row. Good lap from him. But like we said midway through the session, it was going swimmingly well for QVR, and Kuhn's put in a good lap to put him on the front row alongside Zach, who ended up improving on his time. QVR, in the end, dominating qualifying with a front row lockout.
Indeed they do, and we'll see if they can convert that to the race. Of course, I'll run you through qualifying, though. Zach does take pole position, a 10th clear in the end of his teammate Kumblai. They are in such a strong position ahead of the race. Lyronics and Gary, who could have done more in his final run, but was actually blocked by McCrew on his last run, so he will have to settle for 4th. Maledictus, a good lap for 5th there. Laser, the top TTG driver, 6th. Hardy Beam gets 7th in the end there after mistakes in the end. Wesker 8th. Symbolics and Dylan right at the top 10 is McCrew, Sneaky, Joe Morar, Nicholas, Deadly Flu, Martin Bell, Kiki, Atlas, and Maximus round off your grid. Not a good session for TTG Academy. Better for the main team, but it is QVR, the main team, on a front row lockout, and now it's up for the rest of the teams to try and get in their way ahead of a 29-lap, 50% race here at Albert Park.
Absolutely, yeah. It's QVR's the main QVR team have had a brilliant start to the season already. It is the first round of the championship, and it is a longer season, so expect it to be even closer as the season's gone on. But they've locked out the front row for the first race of the season. It is a great start to qualifying for them. Further down the field, though, a lot of teams are very, very split. So we've got Gary right at the front of the field on the second row, but his XL teammates down in 10th, so he's a lot further down the field. We have got quite a big split, and at the moment, the only team at the front. I mean, we talk about QVR. We're talking about QVR a lot already. It's been a great qualifying session for them, but they're the only team, I think, apart from LNR, I believe, they're the only team with 2 drivers in the top 10.
Well, I'm not sure
if I remember correctly. I think if I remember correctly, I think LR may have both drivers in the top 10 as well. I think McCrew might be 9th on the grid if I remember correctly, but it definitely proves that QVR have the stronger team at the moment.
Yes, but of course, that's one qualifying session, and we have a long championship ahead of us, so don't write off any of the teams just yet. We are now getting ready for the race, and I don't think it's quite as bright and sunny as it was in qualifying, just a little observation that I've made. So, interesting, of course, we're going to see if the weather plays any surprises. It's still, of course, very dry out there, but it can all change very quickly, but I think that the 2 QVR guys are hoping that they are going to that rain is not going to come, because they're going to want as straightforward and to use the word boring a race as possible to try and maintain that spot at the front.
Absolutely, yeah. They're going to be wanting to, like you say, have a boring race, really. Try and get away out front and make sure that they're not challenged from behind. In Australia, like we said multiple times so far, it is a very, very difficult track to overtake on unless you have a real pace advantage. We'll have to wait and see whether they can transfer that quali pace over into race pace. Lyronix third on the grid, the first other person on the field, apart from QVR, third ahead of Gary in fourth, and Maledictus is rounding off the top 5. Just having a look at strategies as well, just as we go into the race. Obviously, everyone inside the top 10 will be starting on the soft tyres, but outside the top 10, McCrew, Sneaky, and Joe, 11th, 12th, and 13th are on the mediums. Nicholas for VER he's 14th. He's on the soft tyres, so he's looking to make progress very early in the race. Deadly Flu and Martin Bell are running the mediums. Kiki and Atlas, 17th and 18th, are running the hard tyres, and Maximus in 19th has gone for the mediums. So a real split in strategies at the back of the field, and the one to look out for at the start is going to be Nicholas, surely.
Yeah, of course, he really needs to try and get in amongst that top 10 if he wants any chance of a decent result here today. But of course, it is points for everyone from first down to last, so everyone's going to have to make sure that they at least make the checkered flag so they can take those points home, because that could be so crucial. Just having both of your drivers finish a race is going to be a boost for your chances out there, so those drivers and teams are going to have to watch themselves out there. But QVR, of course, all on that front row there with the 11th driver of Lyronix and the XL driver of Gary tucked in underneath their rear wings. We'll see how the start unfolds. Who will come out on top here today? It's Zach, though, that guides them round towards the front of the grid. He's going to lead the way from pole. We'll see if he can stay there going through the first few corners.
Absolutely. If you're just tuning in, there are 20 drivers meant to be 20 drivers in the season. We've only got 19 here. It is VER that are only running one driver today. He's Niklas in 14th. Unfortunately, Riley is missing, but we've got 19 drivers on the grid for the first round of League 1 of the Esports Masters League. It's going to be a great season ahead of us, but here comes the first race. Who's going to get the best start at the front of the field? Is it going to be Zach? Is it going to be Kuhn? Is it going to be someone from the second row? Who's going to get the best start? Here come the 5 lights ahead of them. A really long hold, but the lights are out and away they go, and it looks a fairly even start at the front of the field. It looks like Zach's got the jump on his teammate, and it looks like Gary it's going to be Lyronix actually that's got a good start, but he's not quite able to get past Kuhn. He holds third for the time being. The top 3 hold positions. Gary's fallen through the field. He's had a poor start. He's in a battle 3 wide further back. We've got one of the LNR guys. That's Hardly Beam. Hardly Beam's had an incredible start from 7th on the grid. He's up to 4th. Maledictus stays in 5th. Lasers in 6th. Gary's dropped to 7th. He's had a woeful start from 4th on the grid ahead of Symbolics and Wesker. We've then got Dylan running off the top 10 at the moment, but Nicholas, like we said, look out for him at the start. He's already worked his way past almost all of the medium runners in front of him. It's only McCrew in front of him now that he has not passed yet. It is Zach that leads away ahead of Kuhn. Perfect start for QVR. They hold on to the front two positions. Lyronix holds on to third. Hardly Beam with a great start up into fourth. Maledictus fifth ahead of Laser sixth. Gary down to seventh. Symbolics eighth. Wesker ninth. And Dylan rounding off the top 10 in the other XL car. Here comes Nicholas once again, trying to go around the outside. But Nicholas is already derating. I wonder if maybe he might be stuck in overtake mode, because it's crazy early in the lap to be derating. And he's all over the back of McCrew. Is he going to get the move down into turn 13? I don't think he's quite close to the move, and the braking zone is relatively short, so he's not going to be able to dive down the inside. He stays in 12th for the time being, but up at the front, dream start for QVR. Was for Australia an incredibly clean start. We didn't really see any contact, and I think everyone's got away cleanly. QVR 1-2, they're away at the front, but Hardly Beam is the man on the move, up to 4th from 7th on the grid.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible. A great boost for NLR. They have 2 drivers inside the top 8, so they are looking good, of course, there. And he's going to look to try and pursue. But up at the front, Zach, in particular, has made an absolutely brilliant getaway. Further down the field, though, that's Joe Morar. He has gone off at turn 2. Front wing debris flying everywhere. Further up the field, it's McCrew and Nicholas that are battling away there. It's Nicholas on the inside, trying to get up past all the medium runners. Forces McCrew up the track slightly. And the Dutchman has to back off in the end there. Nicholas up into 11th. I think he does have overtake stuck on, though, because he's already down to 30%. So I think that he does have a little bit of a bug his way, which is really unfortunate, because he's going to be out of it, of course, so early on, and he's already running out. So yeah, it's so very disappointing for Nicholas. He's made such a good start, but realistically, he's not going to be able to sustain that with that bug. That's going to be really holding back. He's already out of ERS, they're just a lap and a half in.
Absolutely, that's such a shame. It might have been a case of accidentally putting the overtake on during the formation lap, and it's been stuck on at that point. So that's such a shame for Niklas, but he's up to 11th. He's at least worked his way past the medium runner, so we can now hook onto the back of this queue of cars. Everyone at the moment inside the top 11 is within DRS range of the car in front, apart from Zach, obviously, in the race lead. So, and Dylan's made a mistake. Niklas is trying to get past Dylan into the penultimate corner, but he's not quite able to make the move stick. Dylan struggling a little bit in the final sector. He ran a little bit wide coming out of turn 13, and it's put him under pressure from Niklas, but again, Niklas doesn't have the ERS to really attack. OWR Atlas has got a time penalty for exceeding track limits. OSRL have had a disastrous start to the race. Definitely flew to pit on lap 1 with damage, and Joe was also spun at the start of the second lap, so they're both at the back of the field. Unfortunately, they're going to be hoping for maybe a late safety car to bring them back into it. Nicholas having another look on Dylan into turn 3, but not quite close enough. Dylan's starting to lose touch ever so slightly with Wesker in front of him, struggling maybe with a little bit of grip, and he's not quite got the pace of the cars in front. Hardly Beam now is the one that's is the first person inside that top 10 range really to fall out of DRS range to the car in front. He's just fallen a second behind Lyronix. He's trying to keep within it at the moment, but relatively spaced out. The closest person in the top of the field is Gary. He's the one trying to work his way forwards after a poor start. Him and Hardly Beam have actually swapped places. Maledictus and Laser have stayed in the same places from the start. It's just been Lyronix and Gary swapping places at the start of the race. Gary desperately trying to work his way back through the field, but like we said, now that he's in a queue of cars in a DRS train, it's going to be so difficult for him to overtake on track. He's going to have to do it in strategy.
He really needs as well for the field to be spaced out if he wants any chance of making those overtakes on the track fair as you like. But now, of course, he's top 10 underneath the rear wing, trying to get up to Laser. But of course, he's got that DRS of Maledictus, that's the DRS off of Hardly. It's an endless cycle, an endless train out there, as it's Hardly Beam who actually runs very well through that last corner, and he's losing contact with the top 3 at the moment. Kumbly sets fastest lap there. He's out in front now. Maledictus beginning to pressurise the NLR driver in 4th after that brilliant start. Nicholas is out the session, but now we have Maledictus looking for that 4th place. Has overtake on there, closing him down. Looks to the outside, breaks very, very late. Round turn 3, and Hardly's going to give him as much space as he can on the outside. Then the inside goes to Maledictus, runs him a little bit wide, but just about fair. That's brilliant from the Portuguese driver up into 4th there, and he's backing up his main team compatriots, if you like. They're brilliant from Maledictus. Now 4th out on track there. QVR continuing to impress, continuing to dominate out there. There are 3 drivers inside the top 4.
Absolutely, that's brilliant stuff. Nicholas has rejoined the lobby, so that's good to see. But just look at that, only that battle really for 2 corners, and it's already dropped Maledictus 2 seconds behind Lyronix. Just goes to show how much a battle costs you around this track, but a great move from Maledictus. I was sure that he wasn't going for the move. I thought he was just going to lay back and let Hardly Beam go, but he was so late on the brakes into turn 3, and he made it stick round the outside. Great move from him. Hardy Beam picks up a time penalty on the exit of turn 12. So that's his first time penalty of the race. Further down the field, though, just looking at the gaps at the back of the field, McCrew, the lead medium runner, he's 2.5 seconds off the back of Dylan, who's currently running at the bottom end of the top 10. Sneaky in 12th in the other QVR car. He's picked up front wing damage somewhere, unfortunately. He is on the medium tyres on the alternate strategy. Kiki's the first driver on the mediums. He's up right from the back of the field up to 14th, so he's had a good start for the Academy team. Nicholas has just hit the gravel at turn 14. He's run a little bit wide on the exit of the corner. Looking at the front of the field, though, Kuhn is starting to catch his QVR teammate. He looks a little bit faster at this point in the race. They are continuing to pull away from Ironics, who's kind of in a race on his own at the moment. As Gary may be having a look at the back of Laser. Actually, it might be Symbolics trying to go for a move on Gary, but he's not quite close enough to make the move stick. He hasn't got enough momentum into turn 3. But it looks like Kuhn is the faster of the two QVR guys at the moment.
He might be, but I don't suspect that they're going to battle it away just yet out there, because they have managed to gap Ironics, get him out of that DRS, and they're going to look to try and compound the miseries of the LR driver, try and gap him as much as they can and secure a 1-2, and then maybe they can start fighting, but of course at very low risk. But at the moment, I think the job for them is just going to be to run in formation. Kuhn just running that DRS of Zach, and they're going to try and pull away. Ironics has got a real task in his hand now to try and match the pace of those top two. He was a little bit behind in qualifying, had his chance of getting past Kuhn at the start, couldn't quite get through, so now he's having to work his way from the back. 1.4 seconds is the gap, and he's not quite getting through at the moment. There are a lot of work to do for Ironics if he wants any chance of staying in the fight for the win here.
Absolutely, yeah. We're on to lap 5 of this race, by the way. Look for now for anyone who wants to go for an extreme undercut. They can put the hards on at this point in the race. Nicholas, meanwhile, round the outside of turn 13 on Sneaky. He's able to get past the other QVR guy, back up into 12th place after leaving the lobby, unfortunately, a little bit earlier in the race. He's back up to 12th, and it looks like his overtake button issue has been resolved in that moment of him leaving the session. So that's at least a little bit of a benefit for him, that he hasn't got overtake still stuck on. Sneaky is into the pit lane to replace that front wing, so his race really hasn't gone the way of his QVR teammates. He's now going to be dropped to the back of the field and be on a set of hard tyres towards the end of the race. He again, like the OSRL guys, are going to be hoping for some sort of safety car towards the end of the race. Looking further at the front of the field, Nicholas unfortunately has left the session again. Hopefully he can rejoin back and stay in the lobby for as long as possible. Looking further at the front of the field, though, Maledictus, after passing Hardly, cannot gap him enough to pull away from this queue of cars. The queue of cars behind him leads all the way down to Dylan in 10th place, 4th down to 10th. Hardy Beam is sticking within half a second of Maledictus, and Maledictus is losing time to Lyronic. So after making that move, Maledictus has not been able to find the pace to pull away from this queue of cars.
And as well, it's keeping McCrew in contention on those mediums. Kiki's got past Nicholas's ghost car, but he's actually doing decently on those hards, but he's a little bit out of contention for the moment, as he got Harley Beans actually coming back at Maledictus very slightly, is unable to quite get through though. But all this squabbling and all this train is allowing McCrew to stay within a few seconds of them, and of course, further down the line, he might be able to take advantage of those mediums, stretch them a little bit longer, and then make a charge at the end of this race. LR McCrew staying in contention, the leading medium runner, could be in a great position to attack later on if these soft runners can't get a move on and gap him.
Absolutely, it does look like we've actually hit the crossover point, because McCrew is continuing to close in. It was 2.5 seconds at the start of the previous lap. It's down to 1.8, so he's taken at least 6 or 7 tenths of a second out of Dylan's advantage in front, so he's starting to close in on that DRS range. Look for him to be rapid at the end of this race. He could be in a really, really good position in that LR car. The other LR driver, Lyronics, in third in a race on his own at the moment, running out of DRS range of the two cars in front, but 3 seconds ahead of the other QVR guy of Maledictus in fourth. Maledictus a little bit wide there through turn 7, but just able to keep it within the bounds of the track. It looks like Laser is under pressure from Gary. Once again, Gary looks the faster of the guys in the queue of cars, but still cannot get through. He's going to be ruining that poor start and dropping through the field, really. He's going to be ruining the fact that he's done that, because he would have been at the front of the queue otherwise. Let's see if he can get close enough to Laser coming down to turn 13 through the fast chicane of 11 and 12. Can Gary carry the momentum to get close enough to the back of Laser? It doesn't look like it. Laser a little bit wide on the exit of the corner, but still Gary not close enough to challenge. Dylan, meanwhile, picks up a time penalty at the back of the queue, and Dylan is starting to lose touch here. Dylan is dropping slightly back from Wesker. He's keeping just within DRS range, but he's not quite able to match the pace of the guys in front, and he's starting to drop off the back and into the clutches of McCrew now.
I'm trying to look. No, it doesn't. It doesn't have front wing damage. You've got early pit stops there. Kuhn and Lyronics both in, hardly in as well for NLR. So those guys all in. We'll see if they're able to get out of the pits. Okay, and Symbolics picks up a penalty for speeding. These guys need to be watching it there. Kuhn is on the hard tires as well as Lyronics. They both get out just fine, and now they are going to be at war there for lap time. So we'll see now. And what's interesting is that because Kuhn has come in earlier than Zach, he might actually be able to pull an undercut through the pit lane. And those QVR guys have to be careful, as it looks like Kiki is going to split the leading contenders and may actually have a run as Kuhn gets out of shape through 2 and loses out to that 8th place there. Now they are not fighting on net position, but Kuhn does not want to give this up easily. He's going to go back to the inside towards turn 3, late on the brakes. Kiki trying to hold it round in the Academy car, but can't quite manage it. Kuhn holds on to 8th place, so that battle might just cost him a chance of jumping his teammate, of course. But what I was going to mention is that they might come out the pits very close to each other, and that's going to present an obstacle for them. They got to watch out for each other on track. This QBR guys might be at the moment on for a top 2, but they can't be complacent. It's now Lyronics looks to try to follow through, goes to the outside towards turn 9 on the brakes, manages to get it done. Nice move from Lyronics, and he stays with the QBR driver, might actually be able to hang on to him with the DRS. So he's done well there, and he's come out better at that pit stop. Now he's managed to latch on to Kuhn. If he can stay with him, he might be in this fight there, and he could try and interrupt that QBR party up at the front.
Absolutely, that little mistake. Kuhn is so lucky to get away with that. As now Nicholas trying to get past Kiki. Nicholas round the outside of turn 13 once again. He's tried that move twice already in this race. Gets massively sideways on the exit of the corner. Has to come to a stop to avoid a spin, and Kiki just avoids him. We've got Wesker, Maledictus and Zach all into the pit lane, so the race leader is in. Let's see where he comes out relative to his teammate. Kuhn obviously being held up ever so slightly with that little battle may have just saved Zach's race lead, and it looks like it has. Zach's actually looks like he's managed to gap Kuhn because of that little battle. It looks like it's over a second at this point. We'll have to wait and see when Zach is up to full speed. It's just on a second, so Kuhn is just within DRS range as they come down to turn 3. Now that little battle for Kuhn, I don't know if Kuhn was trying to do the undercuts. We've got a spinner.
Wesker Symbolics! Wesker and Symbolics, they've come together. I think there must have been contact down there at turn 2.
Oh, Wesker's in the wall. He's lost his front wing, unfortunately. Symbolics, I think, has also got some damage. No, Symbolics has got away with it, so Symbolics does not have any damage. Wesker does, both running at the bottom end of the top 10, looking for good points. That's massive amounts of front wing damage on Wesker's car. He's going to drop right to the back of the field. He's going to have to pit for a second time in 2 laps. What a shame for Wesker, running around maybe within an opportunity of getting a top 5. Disaster for them, and all of TTG's main academy's results now relies on Laser, who's really under pressure at the moment from Gary. And Laser running a little bit longer means that he might get jumped at this point by the likes of Maledictus and Hardy Beam.
And he's going to stay out another lap as Gary comes in behind him, so he might have lost out in that fight there. Gary, if he gets the undercut right, could be able to jump him as well. And Dylan behind there, both the XL guys in, and McCrew up to second. He has driven a very positive first stint. He actually got onto the rear wing of Iro Dylan, so he's on for a good one here. McCrew, if he can keep that pace up, he can have a very strong run of points there, keeping Levitt's chances alive with that. Lyronics as well, battling the QVR drivers. Levitt at the moment are in a good position to be one of the top teams heading out of this race if they can keep this up.
Absolutely. Gary coming out of the pit main meanwhile, who's going to be ahead of Maximus, so he's ahead of the people a little bit on different strategies, but he has dropped quite a bit of time to Hardy Beam. Hardy Beam down the inside of QVR. Maledictus trying to get back past him. He's down the inside for turn 3. They're both very late on the brakes. Maledictus trying to hold it around the outside, but this time Hardy Beam's going to come out on top. It's another battle at turn 3 and 4 between the two of them, and this time Hardy Beam is able to get back ahead of Maledictus. Maledictus stuck behind Kiki and Nicholas, couldn't get the moves done on them, and Hardy Beam has pounced. He's back up into a net P4 in this race. Good stuff for him to get back through Maledictus. Maledictus trying to come back at him, but is not really close enough to make a move stick as McCrew picks up a time penalty. But look at the time that Gary has lost by staying out a lap longer. He's 2.5 seconds behind Maledictus. He's dropped a lot of time, and Dylan meanwhile has dropped behind Joe Mora. Joe Mora and Maximus both on different strategies, but he's dropped behind 2 cars that he might get stuck behind, which gives McCrew a big advantage. And just looking at the gap at the top, McCrew's taken at least a second out of Laser on this lap, and Laser staying out for another lap. I think he wants to try and go to the medium tyres. Gary and Dylan have put the medium tyres on, as Maledictus looks like he's got past Kiki, as has Hardly Beam. But yeah, he's trying to go and make the medium tyres last, make sure that the medium stint at the end of the race is a bit shorter for him. But at this point, it's costing him a lot of pace.
One thing that we must be noted is that you've got Maledictus and Hardly Beam, both of them on the hards. We've got Gary and Dylan behind them, the two XL drivers on those medium tyres. So they're going to be looking to try and move up. And Gary is in that DRS room already, as Maledictus is going to try and do the same move he did early on in the race. Round the outside of turn 3 to get the inside of turn 4. But this time, Hartley is very aggressive. Forces him into and Maledictus is round. Gets pinched to the inside of turn 4. And the QBR Canway driver spins going through the first sector. He's going to drop well down the field. Out of contention in that battle. He's got so much work to do that Maledictus coming to blows with Hartley Beam. Hartley Beam getting the elbows out. Maledictus wasn't having it. They come together. And in this time, it's the QBR driver on the receiving end. He's got so much work to do to get even near the front now.
That is such a shame for Maledictus, running in that battle for P4. He's now behind Dylan, possibly outside of the battle for the podium and the top 5 positions. That is a shame. It looks a little bit like a racing incident. Maledictus was down the inside, but it did look like that Hartley Beam really had the line through the corner and had the momentum, so Hartley Beam was going to win out in that battle, but in the end it means it comes off worse for Maledictus. He drops down the field. Laser, meanwhile, into the pit lane. He took the soft tyres 10 laps. Let's see where he comes out, as Dylan's managed to work his way past both TTG Academy drivers. He's now back up into 9th place and only 2.3 seconds behind his teammates. Let's see if he can close back in to the Cuban cars in front. Let's see where Laser comes out. He's going to come out. We've got one car in the pits behind him as well. That's Nicholas. Nicholas into the pit lane as well. Let's see where Laser comes out. He's going to be behind Hartley Beam, and he's going to be behind Gary as well. So Gary has jumped Laser with those extra laps. And actually, Dylan's very close. Let's see if Dylan can get a run down to turn 3. Laser very compromised through the first 2 corners. Dylan has to back out of it, but gets a much better run through turn 2. And Dylan looks like he's going to breeze past Laser. Laser still has the inside line, but it isn't going to fight it. Dylan jumps Laser. That's going to cost Laser a lot of time. He's lost at least 2 places by staying out 2 laps longer. And both Gary and Dylan in front of him are on the same tyres. I don't think this strategy's quite worked out for Laser.
No, he's definitely lost out to those 2 XL drivers, who I think have made the right call. Because now Gary can easily hone in on Hartley Beam, and he can chase him down, and he can recover from that poor start there. He's looking to try and get himself back up there. But a couple of incidents, a couple of battles, and all this is helping the man at the front, LR McCrew, fastest lap, Wesker. He's looking to try and recover his way through as well, but he's got a lot of work to do down there in 19th. But McCrew doing very well out there, staying out, and I think that he might go out a long way to put the softs on at the end. We'll see what strategy he opts for, because if he's going to pit for the hards, it's going to be soon. But at the moment, McCrew, what strategy does he go for? Does he go for hards, play it a bit safer, or does he go for the softs and try and charge at the end? I
think at this point he's got to go for the soft tyres. Surely we've seen that a number of people have made mistakes. The gaps in the field have started to have widened quite a bit now. So McCrew, if he does extend these medium tyres a bit longer and go for the softs, he's got a better opportunity at passing people, because people are a lot more vulnerable at this point. The train of cars that was running from 4th to 10th has really been separated by this pack racing that we've had since the safety car restart. And look at the gap that the net top 3 have now over Hardy Beam, as Maledictus picks up a 3-second time penalty.
I'm going to have to interrupt you, because Laser had a little look at the inside of Iro Dylan, but had to just back out last minute. Dylan was able to hold that one out, but 2 lap pressure tyres on the TTG driver. Is going to look to try and capitalise as soon as he can. Probably back down the field. Got Kiki under pressure from Maledictus, and further up the field you have Hartley Beam under pressure from XL Gary, who's making his progress back through, trying to chase down the NLR driver who made that brilliant start. Gary a much poorer start, but now Gary is looking to try and turn the tables and try and grab that 5th place out on track. He's very, very close. Going through turn 11, going through turn 12, and now with DRS open there, but Hartley did get a better run out of the chicane. He might just be able to stay afloat, stay in 5th place. Yes, he does. Gary's going to have to wait, suss out any more overtaking opportunities there. Hartley holding on to 5th place, but with Gary on fresher and softer tyres, it's got to be a matter of when, not if, as whether Gary's going to get through. As McCrew into the pits from the lead, he goes onto the hard tyres. They're going to try and fight through the field on fresher tyres. We'll see if he gets on.
Now that's very interesting. McCrew was only able to take the medium tyres 13 laps into the race. They were a fresh set of tyres. Let's see where he comes out. McCrew's going to come out just behind, I think, this battle between... He's going to be right in between this battle between Dylan and Laser. Laser just about gets ahead of McCrew. Gary, meanwhile, he's breezed past Hartley by the looks of things. He made the move into turn 1. Gary's up into P4 on track, and we've got a spinner at the chicane, unfortunately. That's Atlas. Atlas has gone round for the OWR team. He's ended up hitting the wall coming out of turn 12, unfortunately. But yeah, Gary back up into 4th place where he qualified. But look at the gap now between Nironics and Gary. It's nearly 10 seconds. That just goes to show how dominant the top 3 have been so far. We haven't really spoken about them so far in this race. They've up and gone. They are so far ahead of the rest of the field at the moment.
Yes, indeed, and at the moment it's Lyronix again who's struggling to stay in that DRS, where Kun as well is flirting with it versus his teammate. They've been so even on pace throughout, and they're still looking to try and keep that run going. But yeah, Gary up to 4th. We'll see if he has any hope of chasing down those top 3. His teammate Dylan is on the defensive rather, and he has TTG Laser on fresher tyres, bearing down on it, but no move is going to come into turn 13 just yet. Dylan holding on to 6th, but Laser does look the fastest driver at this point, and he still has a chance of a top 5 here, which would salvage an otherwise pretty miserable day for the TTG team, both of them. So now he's got his work cut out if he wants to try and get past Dylan. We'll see if he can pull it off there. The exit the final corner now, a lot of understeer. And Laser did indeed have to get out of the throttle, and that might just save Dylan, but of course it's a double DRS zone that he can use to try and take advantage of that. Dylan into turn 1 still ahead, but how much longer is that going to last for? We've seen these overtakes in a turn 3 all day long, and now Laser's going to look to be the latest one down the inside. It's going to be in a turn 3, breaks very, very late. It's going to force Dylan towards the inside. Dylan's off! Dylan off the track, through the gravel, and McCrew gets through, up in the 7th place. He now has Laser in his crosshairs, but Dylan coming off worse from that encounter down there at turn 3. He has to settle for 8th there. It's another blow to XL, who have had such an up and down day so far.
That is such a shame for Dylan. That was really, really light contact between Laser and Dylan. No damage for either driver. But I think Dylan, just the contact unsettled his car and he was sideways into the gravel. That is such a shame. He drops 2 places. Look out for McCrew at the end of this race. He's in a great position, up to 7th from 11th on the grid, on the alternate strategy, running the hard tyres. And like I said earlier on, he's only been able to take the medium tyres 13 laps. And most of these guys, Gary's got to at least take these tyres another 14 laps in this race, and they've already done 5 laps, so he's going to have to really manage those medium tyres. I'm not sure whether Gary and Laser and Dylan can take those tyres to the end of the race.
Well, it's an intriguing prospect. They're going to have to be on tyre management mode, there's no doubt. And I think Gary's already settled into that, because he's not really made any inroads on those top 3, and he's not pulled away a huge amount from Harley being behind him. So I think Gary is trying to take things easy out there and look to try and secure that 4th place. But I agree with you, it is a tall order, but I don't think it's impossible. Those guys are going to have to watch themselves, but I don't think that it is completely out of the question. We will see, of course. Now, I think as the field begins to start to filter out, the closest battle on track seems to be 5th through 7th. They're all very, very tight. McCrew on fresher tyres versus the slightly older but medium tyres of Laser is an interesting battle here. McCrew, in theory, won't be as quick, but that fresher rubber that's going to it's not going to degrade as quickly could still keep him in the fight. It's a less risky strategy. We'll see if it pays off. McCrew and Laser, that seems to be your closest battle on track, hounding that DRS range. We'll see if both of them are able to close up to the back of Harley Bean, and if McCrew can maybe salvage 5th place from that, be a good recovery drive from where he started.
Absolutely, that'd be a great result from where we started if he's able to get into the top 5, and it'd be a great start to the season as well for Leonis. Two drivers in the top 5 for the start of the season. That would be great for them. McCrew closing in on Laser. Laser's made a mistake, I think, through the 11 and 12 chicane. McCrew's taken a lot of time out of him just in the chicane alone. He's only 3/10 behind now, so we'll ride on ball with McCrew, see if he can get a move done on Laser. Obviously, McCrew's hard tyres are at least 6 laps younger than anybody else's hard tyres on the track, and the only other driver really with just as young hard tyres on the track, other people at the back of the field that have had to make pit stops for damage. We've got another spinner in sector 3. I think that might be Martin Bell that spun, unfortunately. Yeah. Down to 14th place. He's dropped behind Nicholas after his pit stop. But yeah, McCrew, he's able to push so much now towards the end of the race, now that he's got that extra grip on his tyres. And now both of these guys are within DRS range of Harley Beam. Harley Beam is dropping ever so slightly. Gary's pulling away, and Laser's now within DRS range of Harley Beam. So it now looks like Laser and McCrew could both get into the top 5, and they're not far off Gary. So neither of these drivers are out of the battle really for P4 here, because Gary's only 2 seconds up the road. Even a slight mistake or going into a more time management mode for Gary could put him under massive pressure from 3 drivers behind.
Indeed, it could, and we'll see if the Irishman is able to hold up. He's already seen his teammate Iro Dillon come to Cropper with Laser early on. He's now down to 8 and a few seconds of drift off this fight. So it means that Gary's got to try and fly the flag for XL. We'll see if he's able to keep that one going, as McCrew is closer to Laser, who's made a slight mistake through the lap and not able to get DRS, but he's just about manages to hang on to that 6th place, and he's going to be looking ahead rather than behind, I'm hoping, for his sake there, because it has been such a miserable day for TTG. They really need Laser to pull through to them. There's so much pressure on his shoulders. McCrew almost goes round out of the penultimate corner and drops back. He just about holds it together, but that's going to be a bit of a scare for the Leonis driver. He's got to try and get back with them, and that takes a bit of the pressure off Laser, who can now focus his intentions on the NLR driver ahead of him. It's Harley Beam ahead of Laser. Can the TTG driver get that move done?
Absolutely, yeah. Laser trying to make up for the fact that TTG drivers, none of the TT drivers at the moment are in the top 10 other than Laser. Kiki's just fallen out of the top 10, and Kiki is still yet to make a pit stop in this race. He started on those hard tyres. Symbolics back into the top 10 after early contact with Wesker. Back into the top 10, but 3.5 seconds behind Maledictus. Maledictus, after that spin, he can't close in on Dylan. He hasn't got the pace or maybe even the tyre life to really close in on Dylan after that spin, so he's kind of stuck at the moment in 9th place. We'll have to wait and see whether the medium runners can get to the end and whether Maledictus can regain places due to that. It does look like Laser's now starting to focus forward a bit more. That pressure from McCrew was making him make little mistakes, but now that he can focus more on Harley Beam, he's close right back in again. He's just 0.7 of a second behind. Let's see if he can get a good run through the chicane. He's not really got a lot of ERS to attack with, and it's very, very sensible through the chicane. He's not pushing the limits of the track as Dylan picks up, I think, his second penalty of the race. That's another thing to look out for, is ERS usage around this track is key, because ERS really, apart from DRS obviously, ERS is really the only tool of defense and attack you have around this track because of how short the straights are, and McCrew has much more ERS than both of the drivers in front of him.
Yes, indeed, and that gives him much more angle of attack there and much more opportunity to be aggressive with that overtake button and use as much as he can. Also worth noting that Laser is tight on fuel. He's flickering in between the fuel warning light and not. So he is also right on the limit, and he's got to try and keep that one on the island. So he's got to watch that as well as the charging Leonis driver out behind him that's beginning to pressure him. And of course, we've got Hartley under pressure from Laser and McCrew behind him there. Gary has still not dropped these guys, really. He's starting to struggle already with tyres, I think.
He's
lost several seconds.
He's hit the wall. Gary's hit the wall. Gary went off the road at turn 5. I thought I saw the delta drop between him and Harley Beam. He's gone off the road at turn 5 and has managed to hit the wall. He's broken his front wing on the left-hand side. Just as it was going well for XL up into 4th place, it's gone horribly wrong again. Like you said, they've had such an up-and-down day, and it's another down for XL. More damage to the front wing of that XL car, and he's only 0.4 of a second ahead of Harley Beam now. This is going to drop Gary well down the field. Surely he's going to have to pit to replace that front wing damage. This track is so downforce heavy. Losing that downforce is going to cost him so much time. Here comes Harley Beam with a late lunge down the inside. There's not enough room. Harley's round. It was such a late move from Harley. I don't even think Gary saw it coming, and it's cost Harley places. He spins down the field. He's going to be back down behind Maledictus. Maledictus back up into 8th. Laser up into the top 5.
Gary stays out.
Gary's staying out, so he's trying to go to the end of the race with this damage, but Laser and McCrew are going to be swarming all over the back of Gary with that damage. Trying to get up into 4th place now is Laser. Laser's now into the top 5 for TCG, working his way forwards, and Gary with that damage is going to be easy meat, surely coming down to turn 3. Gary understeers through turn 1, but it doesn't look like Laser's close enough to attack into turn 3. He's not going to go for a late lunge. He doesn't have the overtake to use going down into the straight. We've got a yellow flag in the final sector. Someone has spun. I think that might be Nicholas that spun in the final sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, he spun on his own, unfortunately, coming out of the penultimate corner. But look how much Gary is understeering through these corners. Laser is all over the back of him. McCrew nearly into the grass at turn 5 as well. Nearly run into the back of Laser, I think. Laser picks up a time penalty on the inside of turn 6, coming into turn 7. So even more problems there for TTG. That puts McCrew really into a net P4 with Gary's damage. Let's see if Gary can hold on to this 4th place with the damage. But look already, he's dropped in the last lap and a half 4 seconds to Lyronics.
Yes, indeed, and now he's got to be looking over his shoulder. This high downforce corner of turn 11 and 12 is going to be a real problem for him, and now I think Laser is close enough to attack. He's got the overtake going there, and he's going to go to the inside of XL. Gary gets his nose ahead, and this time Gary cannot quite hold it around the outside there. He has to tuck in underneath the rear wing, and McCrew must have had an oversteer off of turn 13. He's just about able to keep it together, and now he's the next driver that's going to be challenging XL Gary. He doesn't want a gap to open up between himself and Laser. They're still fighting away for that 4th place. Gary, though, has the DRS at his disposal to defend, but the crew has a lot more ERS to try and attack. So the dynamics begin to evolve there, and we'll see how that shapes up going down the back straight. But Gary had a good run going through turns 1 and 2 there, both of them on the overtake. Does McCrew go for a lunge down the inside? He looks for it. Yes, he does. McCrew very, very late on the brakes. Little bit of contact between them. Gary holds it well. Renee side now has the inside for 4, but McCrew's not giving it up. Goes around the outside of XL Gary and just about gets through. Sensational stuff from McCrew there. Did really, really well to get through. He's up to that top 5. Gary with that wing damage dropping back, and now he's going to have his teammate all over him soon. Gary continuing to fall down the field there. That one mistake has cost him so dear here today.
That is such a shame for Gary that he's made that mistake. Down to 6th from 4th. McGrew did exactly what he said he needed to do. He needed to get past Gary as quickly as possible to try and keep on the back of Laser, and he's made it stick. That was an impressive move from McGrew. Put a lot of faith in Gary for Gary to give him enough space, and Gary gave him enough space to make that move stick, and McGrew round the outside of turn 4, very committed, and he makes it stick. McGrew using his ERS now to try and close back in on Laser. The top 3, meanwhile, still haven't spoken about these guys in the race. Zach and Kuhn have been inseparable this entire race. Lyronix losing touch a little bit now with the QVR guys, is 2 seconds back, but they are 15 seconds clear of Laser in 4th place. It's been a dream race for the top 3 at the moment. Can McCrew close back in on Laser? And more importantly, can Laser take those medium tyres to the end? Because if not, it could be a 1-2 for QVR and a 3-4 for Leonis.
Yes, indeed, and they are still chasing that. I'm not sure about the penalty situation. I'm just going to check actually between Laser and McCrew. Laser does have 3 seconds of penalties. McCrew has 6 seconds of penalties. So if Laser can keep those tyres going, you suspect that he'll be just fine. But versus just the Dutchman behind him. But we'll see how that all evolves in an last 6.5 laps, or 7.5 laps, I should say, of this Australian Grand Prix. McCrew still has work to do then in that fight. Laser just has to try and keep those mediums on the island. He can just cruise control, try and get it to the end, and if he can make it through, then he's going to be able to take home a 4th place there, which will be absolutely vital in trying to keep TTG's hopes alive here.
Absolutely, yeah. Wesker, meanwhile, the other TTG main team driver, he's worked his way back up into 14th after that contact earlier, but he's running all on his own, 7 seconds behind Kiki, who's just pitted for a set of soft tyres, and 7.5 seconds ahead of Martin Bell, who's also spun in this race. So Wesker running on his own, looking further down the field as well. People outside the top 10. Sneaky's in 11th place after early wing damage. He's already done 16 laps on these hard tyres. We've got about 7 laps to go in this race. Nicholas in 12th after leaving a couple of tyres in the session. He's managed to stay in the session for long enough this time around. Gary picks up another time penalty as his teammates now on the back of him. So Dylan within DRS range of Gary. I imagine we won't really see a fight between these two. I imagine Gary will let Dylan go, and it looks like he's already doing so. Gary moves right to the pit wall. Dylan's coming down the outside. Gary, I imagine, will lift off. He does. Dylan's going to go clean around the outside into turn 1. Dylan up into 6th place. So after that contact earlier on, Dylan's managed to work his way back up the field a little bit, making sure that he's capitalising on other people's mistakes, and he's back up into 6th place ahead of Gary. Now can Gary hold on to 7th place ahead of Medadictus? It's a 3-second gap at the moment, so he's got a bit of a buffer to try and focus on his own pace in his own race. Let's see if he can hold on to 7th place. Meanwhile, Recruit was flown to the back of Laser and is only 0.4 of a second behind.
Yes, indeed, but even if he does get past, he needs to try and pull out another 3 seconds, barring no extra penalties for these guys. So he's still got a long road ahead of him to try and get that 4th place there and wrap up a 3 and 4 finish for Leonis Racing, and try and keep their hopes alive against QVR, who still run a comfortable 1 and 2 at the moment there. They've been very untroubled. Besides that brief scare for Kuhn, they've really not paired up with any adversaries so far, and they are cruising up at the front there with a 2-second gap to Lyronix behind them. Has got Symbolics picking up a penalty. He's worked himself into the top 10, but now that could set him back, but he does have a 15-second gap to Sneaky behind, so he should be just about fine. But now looking to this battle, it's Laser, it's McCrew. They're coming round now to start lap 24. They have 6 laps to go here in Australia, here at Albert Park, and a lot of racing ahead of us, surely. We'll see how this battle shapes up there. Exit of turn 1 is decent for both of them there. McCrew has 25% ERS, Laser has about 13, so he's a little bit down on that regard. McCrew's not using his overtake button though, so he's going to sit in behind just for the time being. Laser holds 4th place there, but with the LR driver putting increasing pressure on, you suspect that surely McCrew's going to get past in the next few laps.
Absolutely, surely. Like you say though, he's got to try and gap Laser once he does make the move stick, if he can make the move stick at the moment. Laser looks comfortable in 4th place. He's just trying to save his fuel and his ERS, and McCrew's not really close enough to attack at the moment. Further down, Maledictus is taking chunks of time out of Gary, at least a second in the last lap, and he's dragging Hardly Beam and Symbolics with him. Hardly Beam, after his spin, fell about 4 seconds behind Maledictus and has managed to work his way back forwards despite his tyres being a lap older, so he's back nearly within DRS range of Maledictus. So we've already seen that Hardly and Maledictus have a bit of history in this race, race. A lot of battles between these two, and Maledictus spun off the side of Hardy Beam's car early on in the race. Symbolics running off the top 10 in the other LNR car. So despite a compromised race for them, they're still both cars in the top 10, so they're still doing a very good job. Like we said, just looking further down the field outside the top 10, Sneaky 11th, Nicholas 12th, Kiki 13th, Wesker 14th, Martin Bell 15th, Deadly flew ahead of Joe, his teammate OSRL, only 16th and 17th. Maximus in 18th, and Atlas has had a horrible race for OWR. Down in 19th, and Zach has picked up a time penalty. That puts a new dynamic in this race. I don't know if Kuhn's picked one up or not, but Zach, our race leader, has a 3-second time penalty. You have to double check, wait and see if Kuhn and Lyronix have time penalties or not. But if Lyronix can keep close enough and Kuhn can keep close enough, Zach could lose the win of this race.
I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that Kuhn does not have a penalty, but Lyronix does have. So it still protects the 1-2 at the moment for Team QVR, but they've now got a little bit more of a, it's on a bit more of a knife edge now, and they're going to have to watch their backs. At the moment, Kuhn Bly is on for the race win out here, but of course I don't think QVR is going to worry too much about that. They just want that 1-2 finish. Of course, that all-important maximum points there. It's going to be 47 points, I believe, not including any fastest laps or anything. So looking a bit further down the field, still the battle rages on. Laser's done a very solid job of keeping McCrew behind and delaying him so that he can, if McCrew does get past him, he's got less and less time to pull out that all-important 3-second gap that he needs to take 4th place. It hardly picks up a penalty, and his charge against Maledictus, not what he would have wanted. I know Maledictus has a couple of time penalties, but hardly, I'm pretty sure, does as well. Now looking again, McCrew is pretty quick to this last sector, but great run to the last corner from Laser. McCrew puts on the overtake briefly, but just hangs back for now. He saved it a little bit in these last few laps, so he might try and put it to good use as soon as he possibly can, and look to try and snatch 4th away from the TTG man, but I don't think it's quite going to be here. Laser charges down towards turn 3 and stays ahead, just been able to fend off McCrew behind him. Now Gary, with that wing damage coming under pressure, you mentioned Hartley chasing down Maledictus, he's dragging Symbolics with him, and they're all converging because Gary is now up in the crosshairs of all of them. So XL Gary with wing damage dropping back further, and now he's got 3 drivers in his rearview mirror. So now his battle for the edge of the top 10 really starts to heat up. Lyronix picks up a penalty. His chances of snatching a top 2 spot are slipping away, but at the moment it's Gary now under increasing pressure from the guys behind there, and he's going to have a lot of work to do to keep ahead in that 7th place.
Absolutely, and Maledictus and Hardley definitely going to be racing to try and make up places for 2 spins for the pair of them. They're going to be wanting to try and work their way back up to where they were. Meanwhile, just looking further forward, Dylan's on the track on his own now. He's 7 seconds behind this battle for between McCrew and Laser. Symbolics picks up another time penalty. I think that's 3 apiece, I think, for the LNR guys in this race so far. So even if they do get past Maledictus and Gary, they're going to have to hope that they have a similar amount of time penalties to them, or they can gap them enough before the end of the race. We're on to lap 27. Only 3 laps to go in this race. It's been an action-packed race so far. Let's see whether Laser and McCrew are close enough to each other to battle. McCrew using a bit more overtake coming out the corner, but still not close enough into turn 1. And Laser, once again, Laser's fast enough in the places where he needs to be. And he's saved a bit of ERS, I think, as Laser as well. Actually, no, he hasn't. It's McCrew that saved the ERS, but Laser is fast where he needs to be. He's fast coming out of the traction zones before the straights, and it's just keeping him ahead at the time being. And the same really for Gary. Maledictus has been in Gary's DRS for a couple laps now, and still Maledictus hasn't really found an opening yet. And Maledictus is more under pressure from the LNR guys behind at the moment than he is looking forward at Gary. So Maledictus is in a bit of a problem here, because if he goes for a move on Gary and it doesn't pay off, he's immediately under pressure from 2 LNR guys.
As Dylan picks up another time penalty, he can be vulnerable to this train as well. I think most of the drivers here have a few. It's looking further up the field there. McCrew's got past Laser. I think Laser must have run wide, going through turn 10, and that's costing McCrew into that all-important 4th place. Now he needs to try and gap him. Now he needs to try and get 3 seconds on the man behind him in 3 laps. We'll see if he can pull that one off there. Just 2 laps to go, in fact, to come over the line now. 28 now for the race leaders, and Zach and Kuhn closing in on the 1-2. Looks like Kuhn might just let out overhaul him as far as the penalties are concerned, but we'll see, of course, how that all evolves. Meanwhile, still looking at that fight for over 7th place there. Look at Harley. Maybe he's all over, but he taps the back of Maledictus. Maledictus is going to go round almost. Harley had to back off there, and now his teammate Symbolics is looking up the inside of him. But Harley tapped Maledictus, realised the mistake, backed off, let the QVR Academy driver maintain his position, but that's let Gary, giving him a crucial break at the front. He's out that DRS just for the time being. Can he try and break away? It's going to be such a difficult task with DRS.
Here comes Harley Beam.
And now, here comes Harley indeed, to the outside. These guys have been battling, going at it all day long, but Maledictus very late on the brakes. Harley with a switchback, now to the outside, and Maledictus just about covers him off. Bit of oversteer going towards 5. Harley has to back off there. Symbolics backing off as well behind his teammate. Maledictus face to defending, holds on to 8th place, and all this squabbling is just allowing Gary to get an all-important gap up ahead, try and maintain that 7th place. With penalties, we'll see how that all shapes up. Gary's doing everything in his power to try and hold on there. Can he do it? Be an unlikely 7th after the mistake there, and XL could still get decent points here, but at the moment it's looking like QBR like livid. With 1 lap to go in this race of the race leaders, they're going to be guys that are really going to catapult towards the top of the standings today.
Absolutely. We're on to the final lap of the race. It's been a dominant display from QVR today. Took the front row and they're leading 1-2 this entire race almost. They've dropped Lyronics behind. Lyronics with more time penalties as well. McCrew hasn't gapped Laser enough. Laser's still within DRS range, so McCrew looks like he's going to fall to 5th based on penalties. One thing to look out for, Dylan's pace has dropped massively in the last few laps. You can tell he's trying to tyre save as Symbolics passes his teammate into the penultimate corner. I wonder whether that was some sort of team tactics. I wonder whether Hardy Beam thought that he hasn't quite got the pace here and he's let his teammate go and have a run at Maledictus. Maledictus trying desperately to re-catch Gary before the end of the race and try and nick that 7th place. Dylan at the moment is running at least 2 seconds a lap slower than the cars in front. Gary obviously can't close with the damage, but you can tell both XL cars have gone into tyre saving mode. They're on 19 laps on these medium tyres. McCrew picks up another penalty. So even if Laser picks up another one, McCrew's chances of taking P4 aren't going to come to fruition today. It's been a great race though from McCrew, from 11th on the grid to P5 at least in this race. What a race from him. It's been brilliant, but we'll go to the front of the field. Zach's coming to the final 2 corners. He's not going to win in the end. He does have a time penalty. He will win on track, but Kuhn is going to win the race on time penalties. Here comes Zach round the final corner. QVR have absolutely dominated the first round of the season. Zach crosses the line, the race winner, but Kuhn's going to take it on penalties, so Kuhn wins the first round of the season. Lyronics crosses the line in 3rd for Leonis Racing. Great race from him as well, just not quite got the pace of the top 2 and wasn't able to challenge him throughout the race. McCrew's going to cross the line in P4, but on penalties, Laser will take P4 for TTG. Leonis though were 3-5 in the race. That's a great result from them. They will be 2nd in the team standings after this race. McCrew crosses the line. Laser jumps ahead of him though, up into 4th place. Dylan's going to cross the line in 6th. He's able to take those medium tyres 20 laps in this race. It worked for him in the end. He got to the end. He had absolutely no pace at the end, but he's able to hold on. Gary's going to hold on to 7th on the road. He actually jumps Dylan on penalties. Maledictus, Hardy Beam jumps the pair, a lot of them actually on penalties in the end. Symbolics had a 5-second time penalty for speeding, so despite picking up penalties throughout the race, Hardy Beam was able to jump Dylan in that one. Wow, look at Sneaky. Sneaky being the sneaky man he is, excuse the pun, sneaked into the top 10, passing Symbolics with all those time penalties. Kiki 12th ahead of Nicholas in 13th, what really could have been for Nicholas, unfortunately disconnecting a couple of times in this race. He had good pace early in the race as well. Wesker, same for him as well, crossing the line in 14th. A shame for him, but still Laser a good result for TTG, so that means that they will still pick up good points in the team standings. Martin Bell crosses the line 15th ahead of the 2 OSRL guys of Deadly Flu, and Joe Moore is going to be the last person to finish in 17th place. Maximus and Atlas a lap down, but what a first race of the season, and QVR absolutely dominating the first race.
Indeed, that main team, of course, taking home the 1-2. McCrew gets a rather deserving driver of the day. Could have possibly got 4th place, but I'm sure Fifth will do just fine with him. But of course, QVR with that 1-2 finish, they will be absolutely delighted with that. And again, Leonis also having a great day out there. They are by far the 2 highest scoring teams from this race. Is that side of things to come? We're just going to have to wait and see. I suspect there'll be other teams looking to fight back on them throughout the rest of the championship. But for the moment, it's QVR sharing the first 2 spots on the podium. They have absolutely dominated proceedings here today.
Absolutely have. Let's see if they can continue that form into the next round in a month's time. We'll have to wait and see whether they can continue that form and continue the dominant form they've shown today. But it is a QVR 1-2. Kuhn wins the race in the end on penalties. Zach finishes in second, but it's still a great race for them. Lyronics in third. Ran third the entire race, just didn't quite have the pace to match the QVR guys in front of him. Laser in fourth for TTG, salvaging something for what was overall a really bad race for TTG for both teams. McCrew in fifth place in the other Leonis car ahead of XL Gary in sixth. Eleanor Harley Bemis in seventh ahead of Dylan in eighth. So both XL cars in the top 10 as well. Good for their team standings ahead of Maledictus in ninth and QVR Sneaky in 10th. They were nowhere near each other on track throughout this entire race, but Sneaky, with no time penalties, nearly beat Maledictus on penalties in the end. So the Academy team got both of their drivers into the top 10 as well. So overall, a great day for QVR. Symbolics drops to 11th ahead of Kiki in 12th, Nicholas 13th, Wesker 14th, Martin Bell 15th ahead of Deadly Flu and Joe Moore for OSRL in 16th and 17th, Maximus in 18th, and Atlas rounds off the finish in 19th. But Atlas did pick up the fastest lap of the race, so he does, I think, I'm not sure if fastest lap points are a thing this season, but if they are, he will pick up an extra point for that fastest lap. But in the end as well, no one retiring, so every team so far has at least scored points in the first round of the season.
Yes, indeed. That's good to see, of course, everyone making that checkered flag. A few incidents throughout the race, which isn't what we like to see, but of course, that is just part of racing, I'm afraid. So yeah, that is going to be it then for the race. Really enjoyed that one. Of course, my first commentary with the League Racing TV, and a good one to start off with. So yeah, thanks for letting me have this one. I've really enjoyed it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been great to have you in the comments box once again. Hopefully we can continue that one as the season goes on. But yeah, we're going to be waiting another month for the next round of the season. We're back to normal scheduled programming next week. It's going to be Formula 2 on a Wednesday, as per usual last week. Myself and Luke Etheridge will be back next week for round 5 of the season. But before we finish off the stream today and we move on to the Premier League, Daka, who's your driver of the day? I like to ask this in pretty much every one that we do, don't I? But who's your driver of the day today?
I know this from experience as well, everyone. So I think it's a boring one, but I've got to give it to Kuhn because I think that he didn't make any mistakes. Certainly the other QVR drivers, Zach and also McCrew, are good shouts as well. They all drove very well, but I think Kuhn was overall just very consistent. Didn't really make mistakes despite that one scare that he had, but apart from that, drove brilliantly. Both the QVR main team guys did as well, and they bring home a 1-2 then. Emphatic start to their season. We'll see if they can keep it up.
Absolutely, yeah. I'd probably have to agree with you. It's the boring choice, but yeah, both QVR guys had brilliant races, and I would give it to Kuhn as well. Absolutely. Apart from obviously that scare coming out the pit lane, it was pretty much a mistake-free run from him. Also, shout out though to both Laser and McCrew. Great battle between those two throughout the entire race, and McCrew on the alternate strategy making that work and getting a top 5 finish, and obviously Laser getting top 4 as well for TTG in that one. So that was a great race overall for those two, so shout out to them. But that is where we are going to finish off today, guys. 15 minutes time and the Premier League starts. That is going to be something to behold. That is a no assists league. They're running the same settings as us, apart from obviously no assists, so tune in for that. We've got some really good teams and really good drivers for that, and I believe it's going to be Kieran McGinley, taking us through the proceedings for that one. But the next race in this calendar is going to be on the 30th of September, so in a month's time, and it will be the Vietnamese Grand Prix. So that is going to be something to behold. We've obviously commentated over Vietnam races before, and that is going to be one heck of a race. I can guarantee you that one. So mark your calendars for 30th of September. That is the next race in the season. But thank you so much, Daka, for joining me in the commentary box today. It's been great to have you here. Absolutely, and we hope to see more of you on League Racing TV, I'm sure. And then obviously tune in to League Racing TV for the rest of the week. We've got Division 2 and 3 tomorrow at Canada for round 5 of the season, and then Division 4 and 5 on Friday. And then the final round of the seasons for CRC. We've got CRC on Saturday and Sunday. We've got LMP3 and IndyCar Saturday and Sunday at 8 PM. So tune in for the rest of the week for that. And like I said, we're back to regularly scheduled programming next week with F2 back for round 5 on Wednesday at 8 o'clock next week. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you everyone for commenting on the stream. Thank you everyone for taking part. Thank you, Daka, for joining me. And we will see you again for Esports Masters League in a month's time. From myself and Daka, it is goodbye.
Goodbye.